Good morning, class 10. We will continue with history lesson 1 today again. Last time I had told you that Code Napoleon is very important for you. I am sure you must have given it a reading after my class was over, and you must have started learning Code Napoleon. Code Napoleon or Napoleonic Code or Civil Code of 1804. Remember, this is a very important question. I am repeating today again for your board exams. Please learn this by heart. Now, today we have to start from the making of nationalism in Europe. If you look at the map of mid-18th century Europe, you will find that there were no nation states as we know them today. Now, what was a nation state? I am telling you the meaning. You can note it down if you feel like. A group of people with the same culture, language, etc. who formed independent country. Nation state means it comprised of group of people with the same culture, language, etc. who formed independent country. What we know today as Germany, Italy and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies and cantons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Now underline duchies and cantons and note down their meaning. Duchies were territories ruled by a duke or a duchess, and canton, it was a subdivision of territory for the purpose of administration in some countries. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies within the territories of which lived diverse people. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. Often, they even spoke different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of different regions and peoples. It included the Alpine regions, the Tyrol, Austria and Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where the autocracy was predominantly German-speaking. It also included the Italian-speaking provinces of Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar. Magyar was the language of Hungary, while the other half spoke a variety of dialects, that means different languages. In Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish, the language of the people of Poland. Besides these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of the empire a mass of subject peasant peoples, Bohemians and Slovaks to the north, Slovenes in Carniola, Croats to the south, and Romans to the east in Transylvania. Such differences did not easily promote a sense of political unity. The only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the emperor. Now in this paragraph, children, you don't have to learn anything. So don't waste your time in learning this paragraph. The aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was the dominant class of on the continent. The members of this class were united by a common way of life that cut across regional divisions. They owned estates in the countryside and also town houses. They spoke French for purpose of diplomacy and in high society. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. This powerful aristocracy was, however, numerically a small group. The majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. To the west, the bulk of the land was framed by tenants and small owners, while in Eastern and Central Europe, the pattern of landholding was characterized by vast estates which were cultivated by serfs. All this you don't have to learn, just give it a reading, that's all. In the western and parts of Central Europe, The growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns and emergence of commercial classes whose existence was based on production for the market. Industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century, but in France and parts of the German states it occurred only during the 19th century. In its wake, new social groups came into being, a working class population and middle classes made up of industrialists, businessmen and professionals. In Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were smaller in number till late 19th century. It was among the educated liberal middle classes that ideas of national unity following the abolition of autocratic privileges gained popularity. Only this last two lines you can underline for remembering. Rest of the things you don't have to learn. It was among the educated liberal middle classes that ideas of national unity following abolition of autocratic privileges gained popularity. What did liberal nationalism stand for? Ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the ideology of liberalism. Allied here means joined to the ideology of liberalism. Now see, what does liberalism mean here? The term liberalism derives from the Latin root liber, meaning free. Now all these things you must remember, you must learn, because they can be asked in a multiple choice question. The term liberalism comes from the root word liber, meaning free. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before law. Underline this also. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. So for common people, what was liberalism? It was freedom for individual and equality of all before law. And politically, if they talked about liberalism, it meant the concept of government by consent, by the approval of the people. Underline till consent. Since the French Revolution, liberalism had stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and representative government through parliament. 19th century liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. This you don't have to learn. This you can remember, children. Since the French Revolution, liberalism stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and representative government through parliament. This is important. This you must remember. Yet, equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. Now please, the word suffrage here is very important. Suffrage does not mean to suffer. Suffrage means right to vote. See, the meaning is also given in your book. Please remember, universal suffrage means right to vote being given to everybody universally. Equality before law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. You will recall that in revolutionary France, which marked the first political experiment in liberal democracy, the right to vote and to get elected was granted exclusively to property owning men. You must be remembering, we have studied in history chapter last year that the propertied men, those people who owned property, the rich people in the society, they were given the right to vote. Men without property and all women were excluded from political rights. Remember, I have told you last year also, political rights here means right to vote. Only for a brief period under the Jacobins did all adult males enjoy suffrage. Suffrage again means right to vote. So, under the Jacobins, only for a limited period of time, all adult males were given the right to vote. However, the Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage. Again, due to Napoleonic Code, the right to vote was again limited to a particular section of people in the society. The Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced women to the status of a minor, subject to the authority of fathers and husbands. Underline this is important. The Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced women to the status of a minor, subject to the authority of fathers and husbands. Throughout the 19th and early 20th century, women and non-propertied men organized opposition movements demanding equal political rights. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and abolition of state-imposed restrictions on the movements of goods and capital. So, we have seen till now that the word liberalism was described differently. For middle class people it was different, for if you take from political angle it was different, if you take in the economic sphere it was different. So the meaning of liberalism was taken differently by different sections of the people in the society. During the 19th century, this was a strong demand of the emerging middle classes. What was the strong demand? That the restrictions on markets should be released, there should be freedom in the markets, the the restrictions which were imposed on business in the state, it should be abolished, and there should be free movement of goods and capital. Let us take the example of the German-speaking regions in the first half of the 19th century. Napoleon's administrative measures had created out of countless small principalities a confederation of 39 states. Confederation means union. Each of these possessed its own currency and ways and measures. A merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods would have to pass through 11 custom barriers and pay a custom duty of about 5% at each one of them. Duties were often levied according to the weight or measurement of the goods. As each region had its own system of weighs and measures, this involved time-consuming calculation. The measure of cloth, for example, was the L. Underline. Very, very important. It is a very important question for multiple choice. The measure of cloth was the L, E-L-L-E, which in each region stood for a different length. An L of textile material bought in Frankfurt would get you 54.7 centimeter of cloth. In Mainz, 55.1 centimeter. In Nuremberg, 65.6 centimeter. And in Freiburg, 53.5 centimeter. You don't have to learn these measurements at all. You just have to learn that the measure of cloth was known as L. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by the new commercial classes, who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people and capital. In 1834, a customs union or Zollverein, very important term children, very important, underline for multiple choice. A customs union or Zollverein was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. So in multiple choice you can be asked, 4 options are given. A customs union was also known as, 3 choices are wrong, 4th choice will be Zollverein. So you have to select this answer. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. The creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility, harnessing economic interests. Harnessing here means supporting economic interests to national unification. A wave of economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiments growing at the time. A new conservatism after 1815. Pay attention, this paragraph is important. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by a spirit of conservatism. Conservatives believed, underline, very important, learn this by heart, what was the belief of the conservatives. Conservatives believed that established traditional institutions of state and society like the monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, property and the family should be preserved. That means conservatives were of the opinion that whatever is existing already, whatever ancient tradition and customs, social hierarchies, that means social divisions, the society divided into several social groups, the monarchy, the church, whatever was existing, it should exist, there should be no change, it should be preserved. This was the belief of the conservatives. Underline all this and learn. Most conservatives, however, did not propose a return to the society of pre-revolutionary days. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by Napoleon that, and now see, these lines are also important. They realized, who? Conservatives. They realized that the changes initiated by Napoleon, that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like the monarchy. The conservatives, when they saw the changes which were introduced by Napoleon, then they realized that modernization could strengthen the traditional institutions like monarchy. It could make state power more effective and strong. Underline this also. All these are the ideology of the conservatives. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, the abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. All these things were believed by the conservatives. So what were the beliefs of the conservatives? Let us quickly recall and revive. Firstly, they believed that the traditional institutions, the monarchy, the church, the social hierarchies, family, all should be preserved. But when they saw the changes introduced by Napoleonic Code or Napoleon, then they realized that modernization would strengthen the traditional institutions like the monarchy. The modernization would make the state power more effective and strong. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. In 1815, representatives of the European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. Now we are proceeding towards a very important treaty which was called the Treaty of Vienna. It is a very, very important part of this lesson. The changes introduced by the Treaty of Vienna, or what were the changes brought about by the Treaty of Vienna, such a type of question is generally asked from this chapter. Please prepare Treaty of Vienna very properly. When we will come to the next page, then I will make you mark the lines which are going to be your important lines to learn. Just now you should underline European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria collectively defeated Napoleon. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. Underline Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich, who was a chancellor, the head of the government in Germany. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815. This year is also very, very important, with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. So what was the purpose or object of the Treaty of Vienna? To undo the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. Start underlining from here. A 1 mark or a 2 mark question can be asked from these lines also. What was the object of the Treaty of Vienna? So you will write, the object was to undo most of the changes that had come into Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. Now from here, the Bourbon dynasty, the changes which came because of the Treaty of Vienna, the changes begin from here. The Bourbon dynasty that had been deposed during the French Revolution, deposed means removed or done away with during the French Revolution, was again restored to power. This was the first important change brought into by the Treaty of Vienna. And France lost the territories it had annexed under Napoleon. Keep underlining, children, all this, whatever I will read in this paragraph, everything is going to be the changes brought about by the Treaty of Vienna. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. Thus, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north, and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. But the German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. In the east, Russia was given a part of Poland, while Prussia was given a portion of Saxony. The main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. So, if you are asked to write about the changes initiated by the Treaty of Vienna, you will start from the Bourbon dynasty and your answer will finish with portion of Saxony. Now here I must tell you, sometimes children make one mistake which I don't want anybody to make now onwards. I am reading this line, for example. The Kingdom of Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Now, whenever you are writing this as one of the points in this answer, please don't break this point into two. This whole thing will be taken as one point. Like, for example, if you will write like this, the Kingdom of Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north. Now you consider that here one point is over. No, the point is still continuing, and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. This is complete one point. Prussia was given new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. This whole is one point. So all these things which I have read from the Bourbon dynasty till Saxony, these are the changes which were introduced by the Treaty of Vienna of 1850. So you must learn this whole paragraph by heart. It is a very important question for your boards. Now I think I must stop here. We will start with conservative regimes set up in 1815 were autocratic. From here, we are going to start in our next history class. Revise everything, read everything once again, and keep learning as I am giving you instructions. Thank you, children.